to it? Is that how you want to do it?
I mean, like, we're live now.
We're already talking about it, which I think is a weird thing to talk about.
Yeah, no, we failed.
This is the inception of the podcast.
Well, it's less that it's inception and more just us being bad at naturally leading into a podcast.
But I mean, sometimes, seeing how this is live, we got to go to like Twitch, we got to go to YouTube, we got to go to Facebook. There's a lot of delays.
Sure, absolutely.
Can you just do a hard cut when you upload this? You ready? Yeah, and that's when I told him phase berries aren't real. And like he didn't believe me at all. And then he took his hands, he scooped out a bunch of it, started eating it. I don't know.
See, what happened to him afterwards?
I don't know. I've never seen him again.
Wow, that's intense.
Phase berries are delicious, but also unreal. So welcome everyone to the Score eSports podcast. We've got a special edition of the podcast today. Yes, it's a very exciting edition. We're going to have somewhat of a round table with several members of the Score eSports staff about recent stuff that's been going on. There's been a lot, and there's some really big moves in the world of esports. So we're going to sort of weigh in on that. I think there might be some fighting. We have a strict no punching rule. Other forms of holds are acceptable. Kicking is okay.
I did not agree to these rules, nor do I think that this is a round table, sir.
I am hosting.
This table is oblong.
I'm hosting, so I make the rules and you don't.
Wow.
So
I'll steer this train. Can you throw some rules at me about this new Overwatch League? I'm so excited.
Well, can we also introduce ourselves?
Let's introduce everybody. I am Josh Burry, a news editor here at the Score eSports, and a devoted fan of Hearthstone.
And a Smockin fan.
Hello,
Smockin. You might know him from the memes.
Yes, Josh Burry, star of stage and meme.
If you are a purveyor of memes, you may know him from those memes.
Memery Lane.
Like what? Yes, we have a show called Memery Lane where we look at old memes, do a little bit of a I guess a retrospective on how they happen, and so yeah, I host that. That's what Ryan was referring to. So anyway, sorry, Dan.
Hi.
Before you were so rudely interrupted.
Hello, I am Daniel Rosen. I'm also a news editor with the Score eSports. Been doing a lot of Overwatch reporting lately, but my one true love remains street fighting, which is to say the literal form of street fighting, in which I will at one point fight one of these gentlemen live on camera.
Oh wow!
But kicks only though.
Kicks only. I'm like jury. A kick only.
Yeah.
No, the punch buttons give you kicks.
The punch buttons are kicks. It's crazy. I don't even know how that works.
And I feel not that it matters, but I'm Ryan, and these gentlemen will really take it away. I'll just steer the boat.
I mean, you are on the board, but you're also a very important member of our crew.
I feel
if
like
we're going to take the boat analogy.
I feel like for you, this is a party cruise, and for us, like we're on business or something.
For me, I'm captain of the friendship, is what I say. All aboard the friendship.
It's a mystery. We're here to catch whoever killed eSports, and you are here just to make sure the ship doesn't hit any reefs or anything. Like, you're not actively involved in the mystery. You know, like, this is happening on the boat, but you've just got other stuff to deal with.
My people on the East Coast are, geez, we deals with icebergs all the time, brother.
Yeah, you know your way around a boat automatically based on your geographical history. And so
fish.
Perfect.
Geographics?
Yeah, man.
Speaking of geographics, let's talk about cities and Overwatch.
Sure. So we had the introduction of 2 new teams to the Overwatch League, and quick summary for those of you who may not be familiar with it, the Overwatch League is going to be the official highest level competition for Overwatch. It's going to feature city-based teams. So up to this point, we had 7 teams. It was 7, right?
Yeah, Blizzard announced 7 teams in sort of late July.
Yeah. And then we've had 2 new additions to that group. So Dan, you want to tell us a little bit maybe about, because you actually did the reporting on this. I got to sit around and talk about memes. Meanwhile, you were actually doing the reporting.
Hitting the pavement out there in the streets talking about. No, the 2 new teams are Cloud9, which is going to be taking the London spot, which is very interesting, and I think we'll get to that later. And the other one is going to be owned by the Kroenke family, which is very well known in the sports, like traditional sports world, for owning Kroenke Sports Entertainment, which in turn owns the Los Angeles Rams, the Denver Nuggets, the Colorado Avalanche, Arsenal Football Club, and several other like minor traditional sports brands. But basically, they're a really, really big deal in sports. And the patriarch, which is Stan Kroenke, as well as his son, Josh Kroenke, will be owning this team through a company called Kroenke eSports.
Yeah, I actually know I can memorize their names because my name is Josh and my dad's name is Stan.
Wow.
Bizarre. My last name is not Cronky, though, so I can't give you the insider scoops on that. So
I want to know, in terms of traditional sports backings in the esports world, is this going to work? Is this going to cause some issues, or is this the right way to do it?
I think that's one of the interesting things about the league that Dan already alluded to, is that we have a split between endemic esports organizations that have been in esports, they've been in different games, they've been in Overwatch, and organizations that have no esports history or very minimal history in esports to this point. So the initial 7, we had the Kraft group, so Robert Kraft, owner of the New England Patriots, among other.
Yeah, and they'll be taking the Boston spot.
And they will have the Boston spot. And then Jeff Wilpon, who is the owner of Sterling VC.
Oh, yeah, so he is. I don't think he's the owner. I think he might be part owner of Sterling VC, but he's the COO of the Mets. The Mets are not going to necessarily have anything to do with this. The Mets are also, I think, operated by Sterling VC, and Sterling VC will be operating the New York Overwatch team.
And this is something that's really important, and something you've grappled with doing this Overwatch reporting, is that a lot of times there's some kind of like venture capital company that's working and has bought the spot. But it doesn't mean the Mets, like you said, are doing it, which is unfortunately what happens sometimes in headlines we see. Yeah,
exactly. To be very clear, the Mets do not own the New York Overwatch League spot. It is Jeff Wilpon through Sterling Venture Capital who will be operating it, as far as I understand it. I definitely want to couch this in, as far as I understand it, as far as I've reported. New England Patriots do not own the Boston spot. It is Robert Kraft and the Kraft Group will be owning it, and that group also has investments and shared ownership, I believe, of New England Patriots. But again, the New England Patriots don't own this. The LA Rams do not own this new second Los Angeles spot, which is something else that we'll get to.
Yeah, so important distinction there for sure. Sorry, Ryan.
2 LA spots?
Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a moment.
We just want to get through the rest of these teams.
Yeah, so we have on the endemic esports side, Immortals, who have a very successful Overwatch team and have had that team for a while. NRG, which has had rosters. They currently have a roster, but I don't think it's fully formed, and there's been removal, like people have left and stuff. And then Misfits, that also has a roster. And then in China, it's NetEase, which distributes Blizzard games.
Yeah, they're sort of like an internet games and ISP, I believe. Generally speaking, they're sort of like a net and game investment company.
Because essentially, if you have a game, you need to partner with some kind of Chinese company to distribute that in China.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if you absolutely have to, or if it's just like
you don't have to, but otherwise you'd have to set up a company in China,
right,
and
which
that's
is its
just
own situation.
It's super difficult. So they are NetEase essentially publishes Overwatch in China,
and then the Seoul Korea spot is owned by KSV.
KSV, which is founded by I cannot remember his name, but it is the the founders of and former owners of Bang,
right,
or Zap, I can't remember. Again, the names are escaping me, but essentially they were a mobile game. It was some onomatopoeic word, but they were a mobile games publisher that was recently, I think, bought up by Fox, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But they have since moved on to this new venture called KSV, which stands for Korea Silicon Valley. Essentially, a bunch of Silicon Valley investors who are investing in the Korean esports scene and are going to be starting with the Seoul Overwatch team.
And like we said, Cloud9 and the
Cronky family.
Yeah, Cronky family.
Doing this. And to jump on to Ryan, would you like to return to your shock about 2 LA teams?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I know in football, right, it's a big deal with the Oakland Raiders, St. Louis Rams. So what's going on with this Overwatch League, please?
So it's actually kind of funny that the Cronkies are also doing this because they're the ones who brought the LA Rams over. It's actually super funny.
Yeah.
But essentially, Immortals have an LA spot and the Cronkies have an LA spot, and they are both going to have an LA spot. And apparently, according to Blizzard and according to Immortals, we have yet to speak to the Cronkies about this, but according to everybody we have spoken to, everybody knew about this going in. Blizzard has always believed that LA could host 2 teams. And the markets, they just believe that the market's big enough. And I think that's super interesting, is to say that we could see a lot of these larger markets host 2 teams. And specifically, I think that we could see Seoul host 2 teams. New York could potentially host 2 teams. And I think that's very interesting. I have some issues with it, but I think Josh probably has some really strong opinions about a potential second Korea spot.
Because I think when we heard that KSV and that whole group had the Seoul spot, we were like wait, who?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't any.
It was a brand new company.
Exactly. It wasn't any of the big hitters in the Korean scene that you sort of would have expected to see.
High. oh goodness.
Yeah, but like nothing Kespa affiliated at all, right? You know, and then so that to me was very confusing. Yes, there are other cities in Korea, of course. Like Seoul is not the only city in South Korea, but it is the center in many ways of esports in that country.
But I went off on a rant, I guess, last week about, you know, in talking with Noah Winston and talking with a bunch of these CEOs, especially how he's based in LA, we talked about if this is going to be a global league and like you could watch from wherever and you become fans of whatever team, then why base 2 teams in LA?
So that's where I stand this too. So I wrote a feature a few months ago about sort of my, like, not my take, but like conflicting opinions about geolocating teams. This was before the Overwatch League announcement, before stuff was solidified. But essentially, my biggest concern coming out of that, writing that feature, because my opinion's not in there, but coming out of that feature and still going to this now, I feel like we are sort of ignoring a lot of places where just there are going to be fans of this, especially if it gets big, and we are not. They're not going to get a chance to go to their favorite team's games or their favorite players' games because they live in the Midwest. They live in I doubt we'll see an Arizona team. I doubt we're going to see a Kansas City team. I doubt we're going to see even maybe like an Oregon team, right? Like you're probably not going to see these teams because esports is not necessarily a big enough market to sustain a team in every state like traditional sports has. And I think that because of that, you're going to end up with what I think is sort of unfortunately dubbed flyover states, sort of missing out. And I don't think I like that very much because I think it really defeats the purpose of esports, which is something that is extraordinarily accessible and extraordinarily easy to not necessarily understand but get into. There's very few barriers to entry beyond just watching. And to just say, well, you don't live in one of the 8 major media markets in the US or the 30 major media markets internationally, so tough luck.
I can't understand why they would do it. Like, is this a problem in traditional sports? I think it is a problem in traditional sports, and I get it. Like in traditional sports, you got to fill those stadiums, you got to sell the seats. I get that. But in esports, this is a whole new world where so many people are watching and streaming. And if the thing is, if they want to do globalization, and you want to be a fan in Russia, and you want to be a fan of an LA team, I mean, that's ultimately what I thought was the goal.
Exactly. It was and the idea is that I always really appreciated that teams didn't have such strong country associations because I wanted to like my favorite players no matter where they were from. And that was really cool. And to sort of take it doesn't feel like a step backwards. It feels like a step sideways, right? I think that is a concern, and it definitely is to essentially because Blizzard's Overwatch League model is very much, at least so far, based on traditional sports models where you're going to have by later on, not season 1, potentially season 2, maybe later, home and away games in local stadiums, and there are logistical issues with that, but that means that they need to put these teams in cities and they need to be based in those cities, and that's going to really suck if you're, even in Florida, right? If you like the Florida team, your favorite team is the Florida Overwatch team. We have a Miami team. It's Misfits, Miami, Orlando. You live in Jacksonville. That's like a 2, 3, maybe 4-hour drive in some cases.
It's a long peninsula.
It's a long peninsula, and it's a long road to go to watch your team. It's the case it's a similar case in Ontario. If you are a hockey fan in Ontario, you like the Senators or the Maple Leafs.
Or the Montreal Canadiens.
Or the Montreal Canadiens. Yeah. But, like, you live in Thunder Bay. Where are you going to watch hockey if you want to go to a live game? You've got a ways to go.
I do really think that these Overwatch seats are going to be sold.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I can't answer that question because we don't know what viewership looks like, right? Viewership right now for Overwatch is tricky because there's so few events going on that it's really hard to gauge what the Overwatch League viewership will actually look like when it gets started.
Yeah. So first of all, with this whole like 2 teams in LA thing, I don't know if is it an esports problem or is it something that came from the traditional sports background that is now getting twisted into where the money lies?
I think it's just a conservatism thing. Like I really think that they're like, listen, we know LA has this huge esports infrastructure. There's tons of interest around esports in LA. There are the facilities that if there were 2 home games happening in LA at the same time, for like Dan said, down the line, if they want to have like actual games in stadiums, they could do that. There are the facilities to do that if they had to do that. So in my opinion, I think it's literally just like, we know these teams will succeed. We know that 2 teams in LA can succeed, and it's a safer bet than putting it in Toledo. much as as much as I love the city of Toledo.
Listen, I love Chattanooga, but Chattanooga's not getting an Overwatch team.
I like it. It's really that simple to me. It's like we know New York, Boston. Boston has shown that it does have the facilities for esports. Like we saw the Boston Major there. It's maybe not foremost among your mind when you think esports, even East Coast esports. It's maybe not the first thing you think of, but those cities have what it takes to be relatively risk-free. And I think that's why we're seeing 2 LA spots. And that's why I also think we'll almost certainly see a second Seoul spot.
And I do want to jump back to something you said. Is like, is this just about money? And at the end of the day, yes, it really is. And I don't think like, and this is not to say like this is your opinion, but I've seen a lot of people saying that like the teams that are getting into this are selling out or something. It's just like, the fact of the matter is you want to keep surviving in this industry. It is getting bigger. It is getting more expensive to do so. And you've got to take these things that are a little bit lower risk so that you can operate in this thing and keep doing the thing you enjoy doing. How I feel about that is a little bit separate, but I do think really strongly that like if this is the way that esports is going, this is how it kind of has to happen.
Do you want to make things happen, or do you want things to happen to you?
Right? Okay, I get that people are investing in this. There's lots of money, whatever. There's who knows what this 2 teams in a certain area is going to spell out and what the consequences of that is going to be. But over under of is this going to be a success?
I hope so.
There's almost like there's very little precedent.
Yeah.
Because the only other really big attempt, and you spoke about this in your geolocation feature, I think. It was CGS, right?
Yeah.
How geolocation. Like we're talking about a completely different landscape.
Pull up that Wikipedia article, by the way. The competitive gaming, what was it called?
Series?
Competitive gaming series. Back on TV. Like what was it? What channel was that on?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. It was Spike, maybe.
But anyways, like the landscape in esports now is so much different from then that to use that as your only sort of factor going into this would be folly. It should probably be considered. It is part of the history. But to say like, oh, well, CGS failed, so this obviously fails is not like a logical argument, in
Championship gaming series, by the way.
Championship gaming series, yeah. So I think it has the potential to succeed. I've pretty much said this since the beginning of Overwatch, though. Like, even in the early days when people were very skeptical about it, I said, I think this can be big. We had the old War Room show where it was like a video show where we were just sitting at our desk talking. I view this show as a spiritual successor to War Room, by the way. Not an official sequel, but the spiritual successor.
It's sort of a war chamber.
It's a war chamber. Yes, there's an echo in the chamber. Not the echo of war, though. And anyways, so like I think this can succeed, but the real question is, can this thing come together with the right parties? I think that is one of the most key things. So, like, I think that the people coming in who are spending money to do this, they need to, like, those people need to be heavily vetted. And I think that's what Blizzard is doing.
Yeah, I think Blizzard's been doing a good job with it. And I think jumping off of that, and I want to give credit where it's due, ESPN's Jacob Wolf was sort of pontificating on Twitter about what happens if I think somebody asked him on Twitter, like, what happens if this fails? And it's just like, nobody really can consider that because nothing like this has been attempted. And the amount of money that has been put into it already, I think really says that it I don't know what happens if this league fails. I don't necessarily think it will, but I think that if it does, you have to kind of take a long, hard look at what was invested into it, why it was invested into it, and why it didn't work. I would like this to work because I like Overwatch, and I would love it to have a real competitive scene the way it did about 6-7 months ago.
Yeah.
But I think we just need to see. We need more information from Blizzard before we can say if it will work or not.
One last thing I want to add is that there is, and this is something that you often don't get in the Twitter or Reddit discourse surrounding the topic, but there is a space between abject failure and mind-rending success where everybody is fabulously rich.
Yeah.
Like, there is a space between those two things.
Overwatch League does not have to be as big as the LCS.
Yeah, and it could. I think this plan has a potential to get there, totally.
Absolutely.
But there's a space between it's a complete failure and people are making money, but it maybe never becomes the thing that people hoped it would be when the initial announcement happens.
I do think that
so
anybody out there who thinks Overwatch League is going to be bigger than the NBA is losing their minds.
That was me right here. I was like, Overwatch going to change the history of fucking esports.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Well, that one's on record forever.
Yeah.
So if in 10 years I'm just sitting in like a dingy bar in like Prague. I don't know why I'm in Prague. Maybe I took up the violin again and I'm not in esports at all. I'm just a violinist in Prague and I just see a tweet from Daniel Rosen being like, I was wrong. Yeah. I will retweet that.
We're on Twitter 4 at that point.
Twitter 4, yes.
Now, I've got, you mentioned like whatever, LCS, and I'm a big fan of the Misfits and LCS. Misfits coming to Miami is exciting for me in the Overwatch scene. What does that mean with teams and C9s in London?
Yeah.
What the hell does that mean?
To be fair, Misfits have been in Miami for a bit, but yeah, C9 London is interesting because I talked to Jack, who is the CEO and owner of C9, and he said that he wanted London. Specifically, he wanted London, and the reason he chose London
family there
is he says that Cloud9 has a large fan base there in Europe, and I have my own thoughts about that. I don't have numbers. I can't say that he's wrong. I don't know that he's wrong, and you know, obviously he has the numbers, and if he says that it has to be coming from somewhere.
This is not a written piece. Can you speculate? Based on how you feel?
You can give your opinion.
I can give my opinion. My opinion is I think that London is the large media market that is left, and I think of what has already been taken. I think it is one of the largest media markets in Europe with an English-speaking fan base. It is relatively easy for Cloud9 to put itself in there, and I think that whatever European fan base Cloud9 has is likely in the English-speaking part of Europe. I also think that it's safe to say Cloud9 has some European League of Legends players, but Cloud9 is a North American brand first and foremost, I think, and this could be an interesting step towards them becoming something more international. I think their only European brand, or only English-British brand before was their British Dota team, which they had a while ago. They currently don't have that anymore. They have a different Dota team now.
You're kind of dancing around it, but like the reality...
please, just say what I was going to say.
The reality is that they haven't been predominantly in Europe ever.
And I think it's super interesting that they chose to do this. I think it's an interesting I'm going to say gamble. Like, I think it's kind of a gamble. I don't know how the local community will react to that because they are not like a homegrown brand. And certainly a lot of European brands have reacted negatively to it.
Yeah, so that's, I guess, where we want to go from here is that Fnatic, who has been predominantly a European brand, but maybe you didn't think of them necessarily as British.
Yeah, Fnatic is British. They are British in origin, but like Fnatic has very much been a pan-European brand, I think, since their inception. And they even, again, they have an Asian Dota team. They've had
they have a Southeast Asian Dota team. Yeah, and then their Overwatch team was
American.
Yeah,
they've had individual American players in the past, like in Mortal Kombat and stuff. So,
and at the time they said when the Fnatic thing, it was big news because they had a North American team for the first time ever, basically, like a team. I think you said they had fighting game players.
Yeah, they had Perfect Legend for about a year there.
But yeah, like it was a big news because they were coming to North America, and they said at the time, we want to be a global esports brand, right? So that was sort of the discussion, which is cool. Obviously, you want your appeal to be as wide as possible without diluting or harming your brand in any way. That makes a lot of sense. However, we had Sam Matthews, who is a founder and chairman of Fnatic,
woke up to a massive middle finger emoji.
Like what? So professionals, like actual like owners of esports organizations, are using emoticons to get their 140 characters across.
Yeah. So anyway, for people who might be listening to this over audio, it's a tweet that says "waking up to a massive" and then like middle finger emoji to Fnatic.
From Overwatch League.
Overwatch League. He's been tagging him too.
Felt great. Sarcasm.
Which is... Okay.
Sarcasm's not
just I'm noting the sarcasm, okay?
I'm loosening up my opinion muscles. Okay. I think it is interesting that somebody who is in the position of being a chairman of an organization wants to call this a middle finger. That's not what this is. He said in later tweets that he did try and he made emails, and the emails after the last 4 emails went unanswered, I believe he said. The fact of the matter is, clearly, he was in the application process for this, and Blizzard chose Cloud9. That's not a middle finger, it's business. And if he's a businessman, then he should understand that.
So they actually, and the part of the reason for the I guess the frustration is that Fnatic has a facility in the UK already. Yeah. So they felt like maybe that should have been factored in. For all we know, it was. Who knows? Like, but at the end of the day, like you said, it's just business. It's just business, baby.
I understand it's just business, but if you had to chalk it up to he's childish and frustrated, or he's saying Overwatch League, fuck it, like let's make a statement, middle fingers. Which is it?
I don't think he's saying fuck to the Overwatch League. I think he would love it if he could be in the Overwatch League.
What if it fails, man? What if he's one of those pessimists?
I just think that my question, wait, does Fnatic still have an Overwatch team, or are they one of the orgs that dropped a team?
They dropped their roster, and some people on Twitter were like, well, why do you care? You dropped your roster. You don't care about Overwatch. But like, that's kind of an unfair point because there hasn't been very much competition.
Especially in Europe.
It's like you're like they're a company, and they're not going to pay people to sit around and not play Overwatch so that maybe they get like. And I seriously, I don't know this, so this is pure opinion. I seriously doubt the Blizzard was like, well, they would have been like, well, if you'd been paying players to do nothing for the last 4 months, we would have given you the Britain spot, but you didn't, so we won't. I kind of doubt that that's
That doesn't
what
sound like what Blizzard would do in this situation.
Yeah, in Fnatic's defense, I don't think that had anything to do with it. Their roster had some very good players on it. CoolMat69, Buds.
Man, CoolMat69 and Bud sound like fake players.
Bud.
I know they're real player names, but they sound like fake player names you just made up.
One of the best Roadhogs that I've ever seen, Buds. He's quite good. And then obviously they had IDDQD before he left the roster and went to NRG. So, and then we had, as Ryan is foreshadowing here, we had the manager of Laser Kittens tweet about the fact that Sam Matthews was ranting, his words, ranting, on social media about C9 getting the London Overwatch League spot, even though they had applied to join the NA LCS.
Allegedly applied.
Yes, so that is not confirmed. It has been reported, I believe, in several sources,
including us, right?
Yeah, I think we reported that. I don't. That's Gabe's job.
Yeah, Gabe does.
He does a great job.
So that's interesting as well. Like, obviously, that's a whole different situation. I don't really like the comparison. I don't think that there should be that kind of airing on social media necessarily, but I don't think that comparison is necessarily fair either.
But I do think that I really do think that there is. I don't like the way that Sam Matthews reacted, and I don't like the sort of like
professional
dark. I don't really like the like airing of like all this, all your dirty laundry on Twitter. It's just like save it for the back rooms. But like, I will say that I think it's very interesting to see how these non-homegrown brands get treated in these spaces, right? KSV is another one. They're an American company coming into Korea. Cloud9 is an American company coming into London. I think it'll be very interesting to see how these brands are treated and taken in these spaces when they do have to have home and away games, and when they do have to act upon your patriotism and have to make your civic pride like mean something. I am super interested to see how that works out for them, because I honestly don't know. There isn't as much precedent for this, and particularly in esports, and I think that there's probably going to be a lot more hurt feelings on Twitter before all is said and done.
Speaking of what Josh said about Fnatic applying to reportedly to NA LCS, and this thing about hurt feelings, can we talk about the NA LCS?
Let's do that.
Let's
do that.
Let's talk about the NA LCS. Josh, would you like to tell me about NA?
So we have the NA LCS, which is going to a franchising system next season. So applications for that are closed. They've been closed for a little while. And so basically you have to present a business plan, and so that application is happening.
Everything from 7 pages to 100 and something, right?
What we have reported, I think, I can't remember if it was in essentially, I believe in our story it's reported that these applications have ranged wildly in size. From very short to very long, presumably because Riot does not necessarily have a standardized practice in place. Which
there were certainly things everybody had to answer, but beyond that,
people could add as much or say as little as they wanted to, which I think makes a lot of sense given that Riot hasn't done this before. And also, I think they're calling this their permanent partnership program. It is still relatively, I think, ill-defined in the public view as to exactly what this means and exactly what it entails.
Yeah, for sure. So, with this franchising, the problem that it could create, and that I've tried to get comment from several casters and whatnot over the last little while, is that people could start to believe that from a business standpoint, it makes a lot more sense to be in NA instead of in EU. And there are a couple other advantages to moving to NA, is like, if you already have English-speaking fans, you have a shared language. There's obviously a lot of like legally speaking, there aren't the same kind of troubles that it would be like if you were moving to China, for example, right? Like there aren't the same sort of like challenges that you might have. So the question is, who is going to move to NA from outside? Like, who is applying to this from Europe? And our own Gabriel Zoltan-Johan reported on the fact that there were European applications and even an application from a Chinese group to get franchises. And we have seen Chinese interest in the NA LCS before.
Absolutely. With your favorite LMQ and my favorite TIP. Yeah,
LMQ is the greatest NA LCS team to ever play the game that was from a Chinese investment group. That last part's really key.
I just love TIP.
Yeah, TIP was also great, but LMQ's logo is great. Anyway,
LMQ's logo is also
so we've seen this interest in the NA-LCS before, but now people are being able to just push their chips into the center of the table, right? Like this is a big deal. This is a big deal. So
it's a huge deal. I went on, and again, I'm taking bets here, over unders. I thought the NA LCS could be the focus of the entire LCS. Hopefully, I mean, and when I see teams from EU and from again China reportedly applying to the NA LCS, that makes me feel like that could be the Major League Baseball of League of Legends. Everybody looking in. I know there's rules about imports. I know that there's stuff like that, and then there's this whole controversy about EU and NA combining and what would that mean. But I'd like to see the focus as NA. Again, if Overwatch says 2 teams can exist in LA, why not the entire LCS?
So Riot has never officially said that they want this to happen, or that they expect it to happen, or that it should or would happen as a result of this process. I just want to clarify, but it appears that there is enough interest that, like, could you imagine, like, if like the top 3 teams or some of the top 4 teams, several of the top 4 teams in Europe go to NA, like that would seemingly be quite the blow to the EU LCS. And you know, I love the EU LCS. I actually consider myself more of an EU LoL fan than an NA LoL fan, in all honesty.
That's because NA is terrible.
I don't. Wow, you're really loose with the opinions now.
I'll just toss out the NA is bad for free. The NA is bad meme for free.
I wasn't even trying to say that NA was bad, just that I find myself more a fan of European League of Legends. But anyways, I'm just saying, like, what happens? Will there be a brain drain in the sense that not only will organizations potentially leave, but they'll bring some of their best players with them within the import rules? And for all we know, those import rules could become flexible.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Absolutely.
Maybe an EU team that submits a bid is allowed to bring more than 2 imports. I don't know. That has never been said by Riot, but one could imagine that the G2 that you'd want to see in NALCS, for example, in this hypothetical G2 goes to the NALCS scenario, would be the one that is good currently.
Yeah.
Right? And not like, well, I guess you get perks and Sven.
We'll take Darshan.
Yeah,
maybe.
we have to leave Mithy back in Europe.
Yeah, you can't leave Mithy in Europe, guys. Come on, you gotta have Sven and Mithy, but you also have to have perks. So
I think what's also super interesting is that maybe in a reaction to it, Riot has not commented as to whether or not it was a reaction, but Snowbird, who does I think like I think he's director of product on ELCS, but he's associated with the ELCS in a relatively large capacity. And he went to Reddit to talk about how there are ELCS changes planned, including revenue sharing, a change to the format, ways to bring in new fans, new viewers, which sounds a lot like what they're doing with the NALCS permanent partnership stuff, but without the permanent partnership.
Right.
Which I think is super interesting that now Europe is getting around to it. Europe has always sort of felt like the middle child, even though there's no youngest child really to spoil. Europe seems to get the raw end of the deal a lot, and it's not like, again, people forget this a lot. Riot, there's not one monolithic Riot making the decisions for all of these. Riot Europe has control of the EULCS. Riot North America has control of the NALCS. It just sort of seems like Riot Europe makes strange decisions or different decisions that are difficult to understand in the moment, and to see them now sort of making these talks right around the time of this news. Again, one does not necessarily mean the other, but it's certainly It's certainly interesting timing, and I would be interested to see how similar their plans for revenue sharing and format changes are.
I just think like it's inescapable that if there's better money, better protections, better benefits in North America, and you are an EU player who could feasibly make that jump, why would you not consider it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like,
absolutely.
why would you be like, I'd like to be paid less money and not have those same
players'
benefits.
union.
And here's my question.
I don't know. You have to at least be thinking about it if you're in Europe and you think you can play in that.
Here's my big picture question, because they are a separate system. But let's say, like Ryan says, it's just North American LCS is where it's at. You've just got to go there. You've got to be there. What is stopping? What now differentiates? What creates world? What differentiates Korean teams? Where like does SKT just all move to North America because your protections are better?
I think that in Korea, they will certainly... I think there will be developments in Korea. I'm not like privy to any information that suggests there would be. Also, I think that there's a different factor at play in Korea, which is that I think that the idea of going to NA, if you are able to fight with the best in Korea and earn that salary, I think that that's different. Like if you're in EU and you're making like a good salary, but it would be better in NA... and you already speak English, and like I feel like that's an easier jump than like, well, I'm playing in the best league in the world. I'm going to go play in a worse league, make more money, but
with more fandom as well. Like, I mean,
I don't know if I agree. With
I don't
that.
know about more fandom. You haven't
hold
seen
on,
those crowds in Korea.
So, okay, true. But if we're going to centralize, just imagine if, I mean, a hypothetical, again, I'm an optimist. I think that if in LA it's the if in LA it's the NA LCS, it could turn into the LCS being major, being huge. And if we do have players come in, again, like we had Ocelot, the founder of G2, who seemed excited but did not confirm that he wanted, absolutely, that he applied to NA or not, right? But I'm hopeful. And if this happens, if a bunch of players come to NA and they become superstars, I just want to allude to what Newbie said about the whole being abstinent and being a superstar.
So I was going to say,
sex.
Vasily is definitely...
That's quite the seg.
To jump before we get to that seg, I just want to say very quickly, I think that shrinking the overall market is really scary, but I do agree that a guy like Vasily would do great in NA.
So
when are we going to hear the final question? Sorry, the final answers about NA LCS? November, right?
I think it was.
I believe it might be November. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, sometime in the fall.
We'll be following it.
It's going to be fun to speculate until then.
You'll hear it first on theScoreEsports.com.
Oh wow, that was a nice.
Can we talk about Newbie?
Let's talk about Newbie. Let's talk about sex.
So yeah, for the
baby,
we will not be addressing specifics in
what
this
do you
segment.
mean not specifics?
But it does contain a discussion of a sexual nature as.
I believe you mean sensual pleasures,
Whoa.
as it was referred to. I believe the report was from Slingshot. It was written by Kelsey Moser.
Yes.
Ooh, true.
And it referred to newbie player Vasily, who has said that he has taken a vow of abstinence because it was affecting his League of Legends play, and will no longer, quote, indulge in sensual pleasures. Which, man.
So first of all, this is something that Dan pointed out to me earlier. Vasily is like straight ripped.
Vasily,
what do you mean straight ripped?
Like you can look it up.
Oh man, look up some pictures of Vasily. Dude's actually jacked.
Yeah,
Vasily, League of Legends,
shirt off.
Yeah.
Are you showing
first picture?
Are you showing
this
first
really
picture? Oh wow,
first picture. That's him.
Okay, so you're gonna tell me that this handsome fucker right here is going to abstain from sex? Look, his profile picture in Twitter is him with his abs showing.
Okay,
he should not feel
look,
bad.
He's the AD carry. He's got to carry.
He should not feel bad about indulging in sensual pleasure.
He's saying it's distracting his play.
He's distracting his play.
He's not saying that he feels bad about the act of doing it. He's simply saying it's adversely affecting his ability to play the game.
Well, that's just true.
He's good at two things.
How is that true?
Being incredibly attractive and playing League of Legends, and one is more important than the other to him.
He could be good at other things too. We don't know.
We don't know. I'm not going to.
He's clearly good at working out. Now, okay. Now we know for the entire human history, forever, and Family Guy does a good joke on it. But if we didn't have those sensual pleasures to indulge in, first of all, it's a lot less fucking fun. Second of all, you're going to get a lot more shit done. The thing is about the work-life balance. We're talking about this in NA about how people got to look after themselves, have family, do friend stuff, look after themselves, not just grind and do the work. Who the fuck is this coach saying, yeah, abstinence is good?
Well, I mean, I think it's Vasily saying.
Yeah, he said that he's doing it. And honestly, this whole like abstinence in video games thing is not entirely new. I mean, I've heard of this happening where players are like, I stopped doing it. It makes me play better. I don't know. I don't think there's any science. I don't think there's any science that supports it.
I don't think you can. Yeah, there's the scientific. No, there's a medical study. It's that episode of Seinfeld.
No.
There might be something about, building up testosterone before like a heavy like fight or something. Maybe.
I don't even want to
pretend like we're scientists here. Yeah, like let's not pretend we know what we're talking about.
I just refuse. But
at least we can be realists and say that this young, handsome, jacked man should be having sex.
Whoa.
I think he should be having. I think he should be having sex if he wants to, and he has chosen not to in favor of something else. And I support any decision. It's all about sex positivity, whether or not you choose to have it or not.
Esports is like, it's longevity. I mean, you could play this game with the mechanics, like with your fingers when you're 40. What about erectile dysfunction when you're 40 years old?
You probably can't actually play League of Legends when you're 40.
While it's hot, Newt.
Okay, so
silly.
So anyways.
So Ryan takes a really hardline stance on this.
I think
that pun was not intended.
I just think like if he wants to abstain, that's fine. But if he were doing it so often that it was a legit distraction from League of Legends,
you have to do
that's my only thing, right? Like, it's like
true.
If it was like I don't even want to go into specifics, like I said at the beginning of the segment, but like if it's so distracting that your play is worsened.
Yeah. Like,
then I don't like how long, how much, how many people,
how often,
how much setup and teardown is there? I don't know.
Literally, if I hear that this guy never works out, he just has sex, and that's why he looks this way, then I say, listen, sir, you have a problem, and you should probably abstain.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyways, I think like this is a hilarious.
Bring him to North America.
Bring this guy to North America immediately. This is awesome. I want this guy in the NA LCS.
How is this guy not like double-list replacement for a season? I do not know.
Can you bring that image down? It's really.
He is honestly. He looks like he's looking at me and judging me because I'm not as fit as him.
Yeah, no, he's definitely judging me, and I just
show off the smocking, suns out, guns out.
I will not. So that's our discussion on Vasily. Very constructive and grounded in scientific facts.
He should do whatever he wishes to do. It's just maybe my favorite headline in esports for 2017.
So,
but on that note, okay, good luck to him and his abstinence. I
do what you want to do as long as nobody's getting hurt.
It's going to be problematic. Okay, can we talk about the international?
Yes.
Oh my God.
We're talking about international League of Legends players?
No, Dota 2.
International. Dota 2. There's the seg. Talking about Dota 2's the international, the World Championship of Dota 2. Yep. I believe we only have one Western team left in the bracket, Team Liquid.
I know. And like, I didn't put this in the notes. Depending on how you classify like CIS region players, you might be like, well, there's
Listen, they're the only ones left who aren't.
They're not all CIS region, by the way.
Yeah.
I think it's just one player.
They're a pan-European team.
Yeah. So in any case, they are the West last hope as Chinese Dota is rampaging this year.
Listen, it is an odd year. China wins TI.
The moon of Chinese Dota waxes this year.
Yeah.
Though it often wanes in other years, and I think Nick Doucette, one of our on our video team, video producer, was saying that I guess there's kind of like this weird, or maybe it was Preston but saying that like Chinese teams like win and then they don't win, and there's like a weird alternating pattern.
To be fair, they won last year, so.
So they were not supposed to win.
No,
this
they were not.
Year. It's odd years they don't.
Odd years they don't win. And they're about to break their curse.
Well, they might. We still have Liquid in the bracket.
We got who do we have left? So. We have Newbie, LGD, Forever Young.
Forever Young. So that is going to be the upper bracket finals, and that is tomorrow, I believe.
Yep. We have Liquid versus LGD also tomorrow, which is the standard LGD, not the LGD Forever Young. Confusingly, LGD Forever Young is their team of more established older players. I think it's really confusing.
I think Liquid LGD is today, actually.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, okay. I think that one's today.
And then we have, Newbie versus LGD Forever Young tomorrow, as well as the loser of that playing the winner.
We don't really want to go too deep into the schedule, because for all we know, you're listening to this for the Vasily segment, and you're listening to it a week from now.
You're just hearing it now. You heard that all 3 people got fired for talking about this team's abs.
And you want to just know, like, what did they say that was so controversial, and is it true that their boss broke into the room in the middle of the conversation and tossed them out? So
listen, I love talking about the whole international format and how it's going to change next year, and the double elimination and how does that work, whatever. But let's get down to business and talk about the crowdfunding.
Yeah, so TI this year broke $20 million in prize pool money through crowdfunding.
I said 23 in the elevator to a friend, to someone I didn't know.
23. I can't remember exactly what the number is. Above 20. I'm very bad at numbers. But it's above 20 million for sure. Yeah. And the number escapes me at the moment. But it's fascinating because that is, 30% of what Valve actually makes on their crowdfunded items.
Okay.
Which means Valve made a lot of money. It's 24 million now, 24.4 million. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
With a lot of money going to the winners. Actually, I think, amusingly enough, more money actually went to the All-Star winners than went to the players on the last place teams.
Nice.
Which is pretty funny. But yeah, it's a lot of money. It's certainly the largest prize pool in esports ever, and it continues to be every year.
Yeah, and I think the thing that happens whenever you have like a crowdfunding of a prize pool, obviously Dota 2's the International is maybe the most recognizable of those because it's always such a huge prize pool. But the question is always like, should this be a thing that happens? Because we know that the companies involved normally get a substantial cut from that sort of thing. We also know that those companies have the ability to pay for this stuff if they wanted to. I just made some notes here. This is an estimation. It's a third-party estimation. This is not an official number, but some estimations of sales data say that just on sales revenue on Steam, Valve would have made about $3.5 billion in 2016. This is an estimation. It's not an official number. Finding official numbers from Valve is not a super fun thing to do. They keep a lot of that stuff secret. So we know they could pay this prize pool. They could double it. They could triple it. Like those are all things that could happen. So I guess my question is, how do you guys feel about crowdfunding? Is it something that we should continue to encourage? And if we do continue to encourage it, what form should it take? Like, are there any things about the current method that you find problematic? Like, as an example, Blizzard offered a kind of form of limited crowdfunding by buying the StarCraft War Chest, which allows you to unlock stuff for StarCraft 2 by playing the game. So it's kind of like a mini compendium. But past a certain threshold, the money didn't go specifically to the finals, the WCS finals. It instead went to fund StarCraft eSports for 2018 onwards, which is kind of like I'm okay with that, but it sort of feels like it's not the kind of crowdfunding that Dota does.
Capcom does a similar thing with their CPT bundles each year, where it's sort of like a certain chunk of it goes to the prize pool and a certain chunk of it goes to fund CPT events.
Right.
I like crowdfunding a lot. I like involving the fans in this. I like the fans, kicking in money to support their favorite teams. Certainly goes a little bit more insane with Dota than it does anywhere else.
Yeah,
certainly Valve could probably provide a little bit higher of a base, but I think it's just sort of at this point, and this is a bad excuse, but I think it's kind of the charm of TI at this point. It doesn't feel like TI without this crazy fan prize pool, and I really do think that it's the fans putting their money where their mouth is, right? They're saying, we love this game. We love these teams. We want these teams to have this kind of money, and we are going to literally throw our money at them to support this scene.
I'm definitely in favor of it. I love it. Just like Dan said, I think that it gives people a reason to cheer, it gives people a reason to play the game, it gives people a reason to keep trying to reach the top. So I think that that's momentum that builds up from the fans. Now, for where the money's going, and are you getting a good bang for your buck and whatever, same thing with any of the, when you go to the grocery stores, you go to the bookstore and they ask you to donate, sometimes you don't really know where that money's going. I would say I definitely agree with this, but if you just want to know where your money goes and how much goes to players, if you're spending that money, you do that research and figure it out. If you just want to think that, hey, I put in $50 and now I'm going to watch the shit out of the International and enjoy it, sure, man, that works for you too. I think either way, it's a good thing.
It enhances your enjoyment, certainly.
I guess I have to play devil's advocate here because I actually do believe that crowdfunding is fine. But I think the issue that a lot of people have with it is that it's sort of a unique thing to esports. Like, people aren't crowdfunding like, oh man, like the NBA finals are gonna happen. Let's play.
Yeah, but what's their base salary?
Yeah,
I know, I agree, and maybe that's sort of my question is, if we ever got to a point where players were being paid a substantial base salary, should we then say we're not going to crowdfund this anymore because you guys are getting paid like a substantial amount of money? Because if that were to happen,
I think something that's interesting is that the Dota economy, the Dota ecosystem, is essentially built around this giant crowdfunded prize pool, right?
Yes.
And I think that if the Dota ecosystem were to change so substantially, I think maybe you would just sort of see ripple effects into these prize pools. But I also just don't think that's the case right now, and just the way that Valve handles Dota, I honestly don't think it's going to really change anytime soon.
Well, I guess I can actually say, I like speaking about ripple effect as somebody who followed Heroes of the Storm esports for a while. Like, the prize pools were quite large, and then once they put in the guaranteed salaries for players who were in the primary HGC leagues, those prize pools went down because Blizzard was paying the guaranteed amounts. They didn't need players.
Them, and I think that's something you're going to see because that's just the way that Dota as a business is built. Is on players winning these prize pools, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I certainly think it's something that could change as Dota changes to fit modern times. Certainly next year's competitive circuit looks very different than this year's. I would be very interested in seeing what next year's prize pool looks like, because I think it will look different. Not that players are going to be salaried more, just that there's more prize money to go around.
The fact that players make salary, I know that it is detrimental to how big the crowdfunding gets, but the thing is that outside of the base salary, there are always sponsorships. Like, people are making more money than what's on the books. And I think people are just like frivolous with their money. They just throw it around. They're just like, yeah, I'd like to support this. Ultimately, I feel, just so you know, that the upper people who, Valve, own the game, whatever, they're making a substantial amount, and then the players are not getting what I would call a quote-unquote fair go at it. I really don't think that. And it's very ironic that when the people at the top are always going to make the money, if I can get on with my Illuminati nonsense, but the people at the top are always going to make the money, and then the people who are playing out of fun, the regular people in their basement using their parents' credit cards, or just anybody who likes the game in general, they're throwing money which ultimately goes to Valve, and some of it goes to the players. And then when the players finally break through and they make the money and hooray, and they've been grinding for so long, then we pull back the prize pool money once they get guaranteed salary. It's very ironic. It's very backwards.
But that's my question is, can that really happen, or will that happen? Like, let's say were guaranteed salaries. Would if people were like, well, I don't want to support this anymore, or if people were like more hesitant to do it, would Valve go in and say, you know what, yes, crowdfunding, do as much as you want and try and encourage it? Would they offer things for the crowdfunding? And if so, like, how far does this go? Do we just crowdfund this event forever? Is this a thing where we're just essentially paying this bunch of additional money? And like that's the only thing that kind of worries me. And is there a certain point where we need to say, listen, like, we need to tone down the prize pool of this event because Valve is saying, well, okay, instead of paying our base amount, we're going to give guaranteed salaries in this theoretical situation. How do you wean off the insane crowdfunding, or do you? Or is this just something that as esports fans we just pay for the passion?
I think that at the end of the day, and this is a weird thing to say, it's not TI without these crazy prize pools every year.
I agree with you.
And I think that it's one of the things, and I think it might have to change, but I think that were it to change, it would be one of those sort of last bastions of quote unquote old esports. Like, I think that this is one of those things that is so intrinsic to TI and so intrinsic to Dota. And to have that story every year, no, you will never get a prize pool that crazy without crowdfunding. And I think that, at least in esports right now, and I think that if you don't have that, it's just not TI.
Yeah, it's just another game. It's just another esport. And that's what I love about Dota. People can talk shit. I know people who play Rocket League, who play League, who play Overwatch, who say, well, screw that game, whatever. But the fact is that the International is fucking massive.
It's huge.
It's massive.
Everybody. The other thing is people who don't even like Dota watch the International.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I was in a cab. I was in an Uber on my way home from a wedding the other day, and I told the guys, what do you do? It's like, well, I write about people play video games. People make money for that. It's like, yeah, the tournament right now for $20 million in Seattle. And he's like, what? Like, he stopped at a red light and he looked at me. He's like, you're lying. You're lying to me. Because it's insane.
I'm gonna just take off my devil's advocate hat now.
Oh yeah, it's a little. It's actually, you guys can't see
nice
it.
hair.
You can't see it, but it's a pair of.
Actually,
it's a little
really
pair of
upset.
horns.
Yeah, but yes, it's a tiny pair of horns like a tiara, and yeah, I actually am very much in favor of crowdfunding in the current environment. This debate always comes up around TI. It's fun to, kick it around a little bit, see what happens. But I didn't manage to create any heavy controversy, unfortunately.
Really, Vasily was more controversial than anything.
Vasily was really controversial, and I mean, one thing that wasn't in debate. That guy's ripped.
We all agree. That
He's
dude's
just jacked.
That guy's so.
dude's just jacked.
Well, yeah, once his esports goes down the drain, he can, because of too much sex, apparently, he can just turn to, like, modeling.
Yeah.
Or, like,
Wouldn't that be crazy if that was the reason, too? He's like, I have to retire from esports. I don't have enough time for sex. But I will maybe one day return.
Man, that's the headline. That's the headline I would
once
want
I
to
fill
write.
my quota.
So before the kickboxing, the aforementioned kickboxing starts,
Yeah, I'm glad you took off the camera because it can get violent in here.
it's about to get bad. This has been the theScore Esports podcast. I am news editor Josh Burry.
I have been and continue to be news editor Daniel Rosen.
Oh yeah, sorry. I'm now kickboxing enthusiast Trill Ballin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were.
later.
I
Yeah.
thought you were Akuma, Master of the Fist, Josh Burry.
Oh, I'm also that. Yes.
Yeah.
And
with us has
also
been
Captain Vice Admiral Ryan Stratton.
Mateys. That's me.
Thanks so
Okay.
much for listening.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.